Hey guys, and welcome to a new episode of Sell Me a Movie. Today we will go ahead and do a little review on Thor, Love and Thunder. So let's get that started.
Hello there, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and children.
Hey guys, so as some of you may have already seen, I'm hoping that this gets out to those who haven't seen Thor, Love and Thunder. This is hopefully going to be a short review on that movie. This is the second installment to Taika Waititi's run on Thor. The first two he didn't do, though he did do Ragnarok. Now, first, right out of the gate, I just want to let you know that though some of you were not fans of Thor 2, a lot of individuals didn't like it, mainly because of the dark tone of it, and possibly that it was very slow in some cases. For me specifically, I like the seriousness of Thor, though I do like the comedic aspects because Chris Hemsworth does a great job to being a comedian whenever he needs to be. The Taika Waititi series in Ragnarok, I was not a fan of when I first saw it. I thought it was a little too much. It made Thor look like an imbecile, basically, especially when he threw the ball against the window, bounced back, nailed him in the head. I thought it was very much a slapstick comedy that Thor was a part of that just didn't make him more of like this serious guy that he should have been portrayed as. Now, in this movie specifically, it is more of that. Unfortunately, Taika Waititi kind of takes it up a notch a little bit and makes it more of that imbecileness to it. To the point where a lot of the jokes in the movie gets to the term of, it just makes it more of a parody of itself rather than a serious movie. Now, don't get me wrong, did I enjoy this movie? Yes, absolutely. I liked it more than Ragnarok, to be honest. And that is only because of the fact that when Thor needed to be serious, he was serious. And the fighting sequences were great. Very well cinematography wise, choreographed wise, everything in that nature, fantastic. Now, I will say the best cinematography in this, though, is when, of course, the Valkyrie, Mighty Thor, and Thor face up against Gore in his realm, basically, where it's a small planet that they're standing on and everything is black and white. The beautifulness of this kind of takes place whenever there's a light or thunder within the actual image of the screen itself. It then turns to color. It may not be in a big sequence, but let's say if Thor is projecting a lightning bolt, then that lightning bolt will be blue. The hue around him, like the light around him, will then turn to color, which is the beauty aspect of that sequence. Same thing with Gore, and his eyes are orange too. Now, going with the music element of it, the one thing that the older Ragnarok movie had to play on it is it very much played into the theme of the movie. Ragnarok was very much of a video game based movie, and I say that just because of the coloration of it, the flow of it, played very much of a video game, like very colorized video game. Now, don't get me wrong, again, I said that I didn't like Ragnarok at first, but it did grow on me eventually, which I feel like this movie will eventually grow on individuals and, like myself, grow a little bit more. Now, the only thing, though, is this movie has a lot of music from Guns N' Roses. From the main album that they have, which is the most popular album that they have as well. But I kind of was hoping for a little bit more of that 80s rock and roll that, of course, we all know and love. Especially when you play on this movie, it very much tries to go into the pace of a music video, of a rock music video. And just having the songs, though I love them, though I do love Guns N' Roses, it just was not as flowing as, say, James Gunn with Guardians of the Galaxy and the music that he has. Or again, going back to Ragnarok and the music that was played there, it flowed very much with the movie. There are sequences where the music did very well, but then there's other sequences where they just put it in there because it's Guns N' Roses. I mean, one of the characters in the movie, he changes his name. Even though Thor says, your father gave you the original name, he goes by Axel because of his favorite band of Guns N' Roses. Now, to kind of go play on with the movie and try to be not as spoiler as possible, this movie was fun. It did have its laughs. It did have its moments. Did have its moments where it did make fun of itself, basically, to the point where, Thor was doing the splits between two vehicles, and he was using his muscles while doing the splits, his leg muscles while doing the splits, to try and push those away. That is the type of humor that I'm trying to relay and say, it was funny, but at some point there was just so much of it that it was just playing a parody on its own. And when it needed to be serious, then it's like, okay, finally, now it's actually being serious in when it needs to be. Um, but overall, it was an enjoyable movie. I do recommend it. It's probably going to be one of the biggest movies of the summer. My favorite part of this, and the reason why I feel like it's better than Ragnarok, is because unlike Hela, where there was no correlation, nothing that you just don't like her because she's evil. This one with Christian Bale's gore, you learn, and he has more of a human side to it because he does lose his daughter. That's not spoiler because of the fact that in the comics he does lose his family, and that's what leads him to be Gore the God Butcher. But in the comics, it's more of a reasoning rather than what they show in the movie. Now, don't get me wrong, there is that touching moment where you do feel for the villain to the point where you do feel for what type of feelings, emotions, anger that he's going through, but you still don't agree with what he's doing. And that's what I feel a great villain is somebody who you can understand them in some case and in some point, but at the same time, at the end of the day, they are a villain. But the way that Christian Bale delivers gore is just like Heath Ledger and the Joker. Now, with Heath Ledger and the Joker, we wanted more Joker in The Dark Knight, but it was to the point where if you had any more Joker, it would have been too much. Now, in this movie, it's the same thing. It's just the right amount of gore that you want more of because his deliverance of that character, Christian Bale's deliverance of the character, is so greatly and well done that you just want more of him. You're intrigued with him, and it kind of draws you in a little bit more. Do you get it? No. And is that a bad thing? No. Because again, if you got a little bit more, it may have been too much, in my opinion. Now, that is, of course, the not spoiler review. Again, I love the movie. It was fun. It was energetic. Again, better than my personal belief, better than Ragnarok. Probably the best villain in a Thor series. Yeah, Loki was great, but we learned to love him even more as an individual, so much as who he is now rather than a villain. So that is my take. Spoiler free, of course. If you've seen the movie, let us know down below. Leave a comment. If you're listening on the podcast, then of course go over to the YouTube channel, leave a comment there, leave a comment on the social platform. Let us know what you think, because were we right? Were we wrong? I mean, overall, just let us know. Other than that, I will give you guys, of course, a countdown to the spoiler review, and that is going to happen in 3, 2. So, spoiler. Okay, so here's the thing with the movie. They do play a little bit of multiple storylines to the point where this movie needed to be longer to explore and expand within it. The relationship with Jane Foster and Thor, we haven't had that since, of course, really, the Dark World? Because Avengers, she wasn't present at all. And then, of course, the other movies like Endgame and stuff like that, there was reference to her, but that's it. So this is really the first time that we're seeing Natalie Portman as Jane Foster for quite some time. And, we do need that development as far as what happened. And we do get that, don't get me wrong. Korg does give a little snippet and little background-based story to say exactly what happened. However, with all that information, we still want more Jane Foster because we've been away from her for so long. So I feel like even though it happens in the comic book, she does end up dying. I was kind of hoping that they kind of didn't fully kill her off, maybe in the next film, but not until we have that sense of feeling of, connection with that character once again. Though we had it before in the past, I was kind of hoping we had it once more. Now, that was as far as Jane Foster goes. Darcy, we only see her for maybe about 5-10 minutes. Doctor, I'm going to call him Dr. Skarsgård because he is the father of Bill and Alex Skarsgård. We see him for like 5 seconds. So there's a lot of characters that do showcase in this film that we haven't seen for quite some time that don't get enough credit when they should. But, even so, that's just one piece of the story. Like the relationship between Jane and Thor is one. And then another thing is, of course, Valkyrie. Valkyrie's been the leader of the Asgardians for quite some time now. Now, there's a push as far as Valkyrie goes, as far as her character goes, that is kind of, not really there to the point where she's the back burner of a lot of things. Same thing with Korg as well, which, understandably, because it's about Jane and Thor. Now, as far as what we've been knowing in regards to, of course, Tessa Thompson's character Valkyrie and her sexuality, as far as it being played in here, is very mellowed down to the point where there's subtle hints to it. Like, for an example, there's a conversation she has with Thor that says, I played the same team as you, hinting at her liking women. And then Thor goes, well, what side is that? And she goes, Team Jane, which is she's being a smart ass to him, but also leading to the point of her being in the side of liking women. Same thing as far as when they're in the temple with Zeus and everything and all the other gods. She does kiss the hand of a maiden from Zeus, which, going to Zeus, Russell Crowe does a great job. I don't know where his accent came from, though, because that plays a part in the movie, and I don't understand why that's there. Because it would have been fine even without that. He was very much the same thing. He was very much a jerk, or like, his character was very unlikable, which I was kind of disappointing because I was hoping that it would be a likable character. But the other thing too is the fact that we know that Taika Waititi has put in the Ragnarok movie of the term orgy, which, one done, there you go. I was in a situation where it was me, an empty seat, a father, and his son. Now, with this scene with Zeus, he uses the term orgy more than once. He probably uses like 2, 3, 4 times, to the point where the father that's sitting next to me is looking down at his son, waiting for his son to ask, Dad, what is an orgy? So I felt like that was a little too much, that, maybe once or twice as a joke would have been fine, but it was just mentioned so many times to the point where it was like, it wasn't really fully needed, because we do know the history of, yes, the Olympian gods, and I don't know about the Norwegian gods, but the Olympian gods specifically did have those elements to the storyline, which, Taika Waititi does do a good representation of the mythology of that. Same thing with, Norwegian mythology with Thor, because Thor makes a comment about eating children. Well, that's kind of what they did as far as that history goes in a certain time period, and Thor does make a kind of joke to the point of, we're not going to do that anymore, it was a dark time. So there's a little bit of history within that Norwegian folklore and everything of that nature. But there was a certain few things in here where, is pushing the envelope, which is fine. But in that scene specifically, it was just to the point where it wasn't fully needed. If it was made a reference, great. But if it kept going, then it was like, okay, that's a little bit more. But that's the whole point of the jokes. What I was explaining earlier was it just kept going and going and going. Now, as far as Korg goes, we do get a little character development with him, as far as the fact of, in the comic books, he is gay in the comics. In this movie, he describes about how his father met another rock dad, or rock man, and they created Korg. So at the end of the movie, with a description of everything, he makes the notion and story of how he met another male rock creature. After seeing credits and everything of that nature, it doesn't really set anything up for the MCU at all. You do get a snippet of Hercules, though, so that was really cool that they're bringing the MCU. The other thing, too, is they bring a weird love triangle between Stormbreaker, Mjolnir, and Thor, where, Thor tries to wield Mjolnir again once Jane has it, and then Stormbreaker comes to the side, and it kind of creates that awkward moment. But that's just not the first time. It's to the point where these two hammers are kind of lifelike and humanoid-like, where it's now a love triangle between the three, and it just plays on throughout the whole movie as well, which, we all already understand that, there's a little difference as far as tension, just because of the fact it's no different than when Cap wielded Mjolnir in Avengers Endgame as well. So that's fine as far as that element goes, but it was played on so much to the point where it just made it more silly than what it actually was. But all in all, it was, again, an enjoyable movie. Highly, I would recommend it, especially during the summer. Theater basis. There's a lot of action to it, lovable action to it, lovable characters as well. And if you missed a Thor story, this is one that you should see and go out to see. But again, those were the spoilers as far as the movie goes. Wanted to save it for you guys at the very end, just because for those who don't care about spoilers, those were just my thoughts on them, and kind of wanted to get it out. So again, if please follow, support independent channel, like us on Facebook. There is a link below to our merchandise store for shirts to support us as well, because those funds go to videos like this as well as many other things going on in the future. So overall, probably one of the more fun Thor movies. Highly recommend it, and let us know what you think. Have a good one.